Hey everyone, welcome to another recording of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. My name is Paul Lathrop. I am the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Your team today is me, Rob Morse, John Richardson, and Amy is getting reconnected. Amy, if you can hear me, I just through Facebook Messenger sent you a link. I need you to disconnect from the link you're on. No, you know what? Don't do that. Hang on. It's going to take me a minute. But before we start recording, I'm going to go ahead and do some changes here. And give me just a second. I'll get everything changed around. And let's see here. Box 4. And now I got to find, there we go. This is how the sausage gets made, folks. And Tracy, can I have you turn your phone sideways?
You mean Amy?
Amy, I'm sorry. Well, you're on Tracy's line.
Some people.
Okay, and while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and hook up social media. And a quick reminder, if you are catching us live, you can comment on either the live Facebook. Oh, and I gotta get OpsLens fired up. OpsLens is now going. If you're catching us live on either Facebook or YouTube, you can comment on the live video. We'll get that right away. And I'll put your comments up on the air. We'll discuss them. If you're catching us on OpsLens, either the OpsLens Facebook or OpsLens itself, I cannot see those through my broadcast software. But if you tweet with the hashtag PS Podcast over on Twitter, I'll get that and I'll put that up and we'll discuss your comments on the air as we are live. So I think having said all that, I think on my end I'm ready to fly. Rob, you looks like you're done editing the intro. Are we ready to go, folks?
Hit it, kid.
Okay. In that case, Masada Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this on Monday, July the 18th, 2022. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morrison. On tonight's show, we talk with Grace Stevens about her work with The Truth About Guns, her comic strip, The Chambered Pen, and self-defense on campus.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about the Associated Press revising its style book.
I'm Amy Dillon, and we will talk about a new assault weapons and magazine capacity ban proposed in Congress. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 563 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the personal news segment, and as I usually do, I'm going to start with Rob and say, what have you been up to since the last time we've gone on the air? But Rob, dude, you're a multimedia mogul, man. You've been everywhere.
I've been everywhere. Oh, really? I was on Dan Wass's Loaded Mic. We tried to do that for a couple of weeks running. Finally got our schedules to mesh. As I do each week, I joined Bill Frady on his Lock and Load radio show. I recorded another episode of Self-Defense Gun Stories. That was last week with Amanda Suffolcool. I did some dry practice. It's warm out here, but I try and carry every day. John, what you been up to?
Well, I worked the local gun show the weekend before last for Grassroots North Carolina. Saturday crowds seemed up just a bit, and Sunday crowds were, but that's because the last show was on Mother's Day.
Oh,
And we had yeah, I know. In other news, retirement from my day job is quickly approaching. I told them no later than Labor Day. And other than the stock market sucking and inflation being out of control, I'm ready. Yeah, I know.
wow.
Yeah. Amy, how about you?
Well, it's been a long time since I've been on air, and I've just been dealing with, my fiance had, if you know him, Shaky Dave, he's had a lot of health issues this past year, but we're getting through it, and we're finally in a position to where, we're able to kind of get back to some of the things on prior to some of the issues. I'm working with Gator. They are a tactical eyewear brand that the U.S. Navy SEALs use, and they produce protective or manufacture protective eyewear that's great for on and off the range. If any of our listeners want to check out their products, you can go to gators.com and use Amy15 for a 15% discount. We've also been really making some treadway on guntherapy.org. That's Dave and my initiative to, get disabled and people that have physical and other disabilities into the shooting sports. We're actually partnering with NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, next month on something we've been working on for the past year. So just in time for National Shooting Sports, which is next month, please go to info or guntherapy.org to check that out for what we're kind of doing. Other than that, just trying to get back into the groove of the 2A community and all the different things that we're involved in. But it's great to be back on PSP, and I'm excited to make this a regular thing again. So, Paul, what have you been up to? It's been a while since I've heard from you and Susan.
Well, for me, we are deep into planning for AmCon. That is coming up quickly. September 30th is the day it actually happens, but it takes a lot of work to get there. And we are hip deep in planning for that right now. I am, as far as on the gun side, I've been to the range a couple times since last Monday's show, and I'm hoping that we can. I'm planning on not 1 week from today. There's going to be a regular show. Shortly after that, I leave for Detroit. I'm going to be helping out Rick Ector up in Detroit with his women's training weekend. And there may not, the 1st of August, there may not be a show because I'll be up there July 30th and 31st. 1st of August, there may not be a show. I'll probably be on my way back from Detroit back here. I know there will not be a Daily Bullet because I'm not leaving till Monday morning. It's a 13-hour straight drive with no potty breaks, no fuel stops, no nothing. So there may be a polite society that night, but probably not. Anyway, I've been getting prepared for AmCon, getting prepared to go help out Rick. Really looking forward to that because a lot of my friends are going to be there. And that's just, and been doing a lot of research, especially today for the Bullet. Boy, a lot of things have been going on, so I've been just lots of screen time for me. So that's what's been going on with me. So anyway, let's do this. I want to talk about Self-Defense Radio Network here real fast. And somewhere here I've got a button, and I'll find it later. So we're gonna talk about Self-Defense Radio Network, selfdefenseradio.net. If you head there, we've got, I believe, 14 shows on the network. More are coming. We've had another show asked to join just this week, and I'm hoping to get that show added in the next few weeks. But if you head there, Rob's shows, the self-defense gun stories is there. Amanda's show, Eye on the Target Radio is there. Of course, you find us there. The tagline is all your favorite pro-freedom podcasts in one place. You can listen right on the website. All the subscription information is there if you want to subscribe to them. Please go check us out at sdrn.us or selfdefenseradio.net. We are going to step aside away for our first break. When we come back, Grace Stevens is patiently, I hope, waiting for us to join to do her interview. We'll be right back with that right after we hear from ACLDN. Right back, right after this, folks.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, I need to bring this screen up. Everybody, welcome back to the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining us, Grace Stevens. Grace writes for the Truth About Guns, is actually a very talented, what I would say is a political cartoonist. I'm trying to get some of those cartoons. She was nice enough to send me some of the stuff she's done. I'm trying to get those loaded up in my broadcast software. We'll have to see if I can get that done. But first of all, Grace, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So let's. I want to get started with this. You're a college student, and you've landed a gig writing for the Truth About Guns. I've seen before. Let me see here if I can. I gotta. Boy, I'm having problems getting these saved.
Can I ask Grace questions while
yes,
you deal
go
with
ahead.
buttons?
Go ahead.
Grace, how did you end up writing for the Truth About Guns? And
Well,
thank
I
you
ended
for
up-
doing that, by the way.
You know, I really enjoy it. I ended up getting in contact with Dan and started off with doing one comic a week and followed through starting to do some quote of the days and defensive gun uses at this point. Just kind of slowly getting more work as I go.
So you basically knocked on the door and said, I'm interested. I've got this idea for some graphics. And Dan, who's an editor, went, I've heard of graphics. I can't do that. And he picked you up. And then you said, by the way, since I'm here, I also do DGUs. Nice, nice work.
Thank you.
Are you a journalist major or what's your how does this compare to your day job?
Well, as for school, I'm going to school to be an early education major. I'm hoping to work for an elementary school in the area, hopefully, once I graduate, which is always super interesting to compare those two when people ask me what I do currently for my job.
Okay, so go ahead, Amy, please.
I wanted to ask, since you brought up your job being completely different from what you're doing now, and I'm actually taking a look at your website. Did you do these drawings yourself?
Yes, all of them.
That you are so talented. I was going to ask, how did you interested in men, and all, everything that you're doing with writing for The Truth About Guns? How did you get involved into that lifestyle?
Well, I was raised with guns and hunting being a huge part of my life, and I also grew up drawing heavily. I've always kind of enjoyed writing, so it all kind of just combined into what I'm doing now. Luckily, I'm really enjoying it. And I realized, like, hey, I can draw, and I started doing comics about things just around school, around home, things going on, and realized I could do comics about things in the gun world.
I don't think I've seen any comic strips devoted to 2A issues. So it's really interesting to see that, and I think it's just such a cool, kind of niche that you have there. Do you see yourself doing this even, I don't know what, you're a junior in college?
I'm going into my sophomore year right now.
Oh, sophomore year. Okay. Do you see this being something that you're going to continue doing even after maybe you graduate, or is this too early of a question?
I would love to continue doing it after I graduate, even if it's just on the side or if that ends up being my full-time job. However it kind of rolls out, I'm down to do whatever I can.
Tell us a little bit more about comics in general, because where do you get the topics at? Just things in, mainstream media, kind of what they're looking at, and then just kind of poking fun at some of the myths that that mainstream media might say or show about gun carrying people. Tell me about the process as far as how you get an idea in your head to actually drawing it out and then submitting it for publication.
Well, it all starts with thinking about, sometimes it's from things that I've just kind of heard growing up with the gun world being very close to me. Hearing some arguments, people are like, well, this is better than this, and so on and so forth. As well as just watching the news and doing quotes of the day for T-Tag has also brought in seeing people say kind of dumb things sometimes, and that inspires comics every once in a while. It's happened multiple times at this point. And sometimes I talk to my mom about them too, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Continue with that." And I have lots of sources, but typically it's media or from just what I've grown up with.
Grace, I know it's rude to ask a woman her age, but let me just say this: let me ask it this way: are you old enough to carry in Texas?
No, not necessarily. I'm 19 right now. Okay. So I still got a couple years to go.
Well, and I looked at it as, isn't that nice that we have...
I've got a question.
Yeah, go.
Well, when you said you were 19, I didn't know your age. And with all the conversation, within the last couple of weeks, about raising the age limit to purchase a long gun to 21. How do you feel about that, being 19 years old and being someone that is responsible with guns in the house? How is that going to affect you, and how do you feel about that?
I think it's kind of disappointing, especially because I do go hunting, and purchasing long guns is something that it would be nice to have accessible to me, since handguns and things like that aren't available for a few more years. So it's definitely been a bit frustrating hearing what's going on.
Yeah, I know in Texas there had been a couple lawsuits over the years about challenging the restriction on under 21-year-olds, but above 18, being able to purchase a handgun and also carry permits. They kind of died away. Hopefully they'll come back. Obviously you're a very responsible person, or you wouldn't, how can I put this? You're the kind of person I would love to see carrying a gun for her own self-protection and for my protection.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Grace, I'm a word guy. I search online to go, oh, there's a graphic that sort of fits, and I put it in. you have to make a graphic that tells a story, that has a point of view, that has identifiable characters in it. In one or two panels, all of a sudden I looked at some of your work and I went, man, if I want to, I get to drop in another 100 words to explain things, and you have to compress that into one image. I throw away about half of what I write. How much of your artwork says, yeah, the right idea, no, bad, and it ends up getting erased and you start over?
I typically have 2 to 3 sketches going on a general idea, and then I narrow it down to one, and then I do the line work, get some advice on like, okay, that's good, change that, take that away completely, and then I color it, get the final product, and then it takes 1 to 2 revisions normally of the text or the characters, or needing more detail, things like that. I definitely go through a lot of revisions every week working on those.
Wow. All right, so similar. Obviously, there are differences, but similar. You know, you do an outline, put pieces in, see how it develops, and then go, yeah, and then you have to add and subtract. Okay, thank you.
Did you take it?
I
Go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead. No, it's okay. Who's next?
I was going to ask. I'm sorry, Amy.
Go ahead. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to ask if Grace took a lot of art classes when you were in high school.
I took 2 in middle school that were just required. Generally, everybody took them. And then in high school, I didn't really take many, or they weren't available because I moved schools a bit. And the school I graduated from did not have any art classes available. So most of my work is completely self-taught at this point. I've taken 1 art class in college because I'm hoping to minor in art.
Very good.
So you're working. Oh, Amy. Now, Amy, finally, she's waited months to ask this question.
I wanted to ask, how did you come up with the name The Chambered Pen? And then the second part of that question is, have any of your classmates seen your work?
I was trying to think of something a little catchy and pointing at the gun industry a bit. And I don't know, I had so many ideas, and that was the one that seemed to just ring the best. I really liked that one, and some of my classmates have seen it. It's come up in class a few times, or I've talked to my professor and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And so every once in a while he'd point me out and be like, oh yeah, she does freelance artwork, and I'm like, oh gosh. And then, so yeah, some of my classmates have seen some of my work, not many though.
I want to put up, I've gotten a couple, I'll get more here in a bit. I want to get a couple of these up. Some of your cartoon work. I love this one, by the way. And Grace, this is not one you sent me. This is one I found on The Truth About Guns. But I love this one. That is, and that would get me. I'm telling you right now. Another one, and this is one she did send me when I said, you send me a few. You do really, really good work. Send me a few. This is one she did send me. So she does really. We'll get some more of them up later. I'm trying to get them from my phone to the broadcast software. It takes a little bit of work, so give me some time, folks. Let me get. We got some questions coming in from the viewers. DJ Play Nice wants to know of the pieces you've published, what have been some of your favorites?
I really do like that one with the dissecting of the gun, because I've seen a lot of memes about the anatomy of a pew pew, and I took that a little literally. I also really enjoyed doing my Red Flag Laws comic. I really like doing really dramatized characters, and doing a donkey and a elephant was super fun, and I got to go in and put on a lot of little detail. I love adding a lot of detail to my drawings, lots of hashing and stuff, and that was a perfect piece for that.
Okay.
Whoops. You're in almost the right place. are you going to be, the Gun Rights Policy Conference this year is in Dallas. It's at the end of September. Does that fit with your schedule?
I'm not sure. I didn't know that it was happening. I'm not sure.
All right. There were a few years when we would cover the conference. We would do color commentary as speakers came on and off the podium. These days, Paul just puts it all up on video. There's so much going on, we hardly get a chance to talk. I hope to see you there.
All right, I'll see if I can.
We got one more I want to put up here, and I'm working on getting that donkey and elephant one, but I want to get this one up here real fast. That's him, officer. The ghost gun did it. I love that one. And DJ Plain Ice also asks, on the cartoon side, who have been some of your influencers? Is there a cartoonist you looked at and go, I like their work. I want to do stuff kind of like that.
Oh, I grew up reading a lot of Calvin and Hobbes and the Far Side comics. Especially the Far Side, as for doing the one panel kind of like tells a whole story. And Garfield as well are some big ones that I just grew up just reading and consuming endlessly. And those specific artists definitely, I really enjoy looking at their artwork, as well as just generally like cartoons, like Adventure Time and stuff, seeing how the artists draw the characters and design them. And I really like some of the wacky aspects of them.
All right. I'm still working on, well, you know what, we need to do this. We are coming up on the first 15-minute segment. Grace, can you hang out with us for one more segment?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna work on getting that last image, and I do still want to talk about self-defense on campus. So everybody, hang out with us. We'll be right back right after we hear from CNJFO. Hang on, everybody, right back after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
All right, welcome back to the interview segment, second interview segment with Grace Stevens of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. As promised, I was able to get that one with the donkey and the elephant in. This is Grace's, this fits so well. The donkey says we demand national red flag laws. The elephant says, call them orange flag laws and we're on board. That fits, and it fits so well. I think you nailed that one, Grace. That's great. DJ Plain Ice over on the YouTube side says that he thought he caught the Gary Larson vibes in some of your stuff. So I want to switch topics on you. You are a sophomore in college, and let's just say, from what popular images of colleges right now are that it's shall we say, a liberal wasteland, that you don't get conservative views in college, and self-defense and the Second Amendment aren't really welcomed in most colleges. where you're going to school, obviously Texas, it may be a little different. Are people of age in Texas allowed to defend themselves at your college?
I know on my campus, concealed carry is generally allowed, but you have to be licensed and have a few requirements within that, and then there's still restrictions in certain buildings. It varies for sure on restrictions, and it still becomes a huge legal issue. And there's a huge chunk of the population that isn't even interested. I know there's some that are. It's just not as common. It also depends on what kind of classes you're going to. I know when I go to my art classes, it's less so that, for sure.
I'm going to say when I was college age, I was when I was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, man, I was bulletproof. And in college age, I majored in drinking and other recreational substances, and so that it wasn't really top of my mind at that age. So I can understand why among the students it may not be top of mind, but I'm glad to hear, at least in some instances, it is allowed, although Texas is now permitless carry. I'm surprised to hear that you still have to have a permit if you want to carry in Texas. I mean, on that campus, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I was reviewing some of the laws going in, and it's still at my campus requiring a license for them to see it as all right.
Okay. Wow.
I know what we
go, Rob.
If you got we have been doing defensive gun use stories for a long time. Part of that was, hey, did you hear what happened? And then part of it's, there's a lot of the story that we have to guess at because your ordinary neighborhood beat reporter isn't a firearms instructor, doesn't know how to look at these. What has it been like for you to cover them? In some sense, you'd like to be a firearms instructor. You'd like to know what best practice is. What's been your take?
It's definitely been harder to find certain information about stories. I have had a couple where it's been a bit spotty, and or I've had to go through multiple articles with the exact same topic to find what's actually going on. I just wish there was a bit more education within the media and heavier observations within everything that's going on, for sure. It can be difficult.
Isn't that interesting? Or it's fascinating to me to hear it coming from you, because that's now your beat. You read the news differently, and you go, "Yeah, I see what they left out." So you're an informed consumer now.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing, you're not a journalism major. You're not looking to make your life in journalism. But one thing we will be talking about in the news segment, and I've talked about at length on the bullet, AP this week did make some inroads towards neutrality in changing their style sheet and saying, look, stop calling these assault weapons. They're not. There is no such thing. And correcting people who write for AP and say, look, they're semi-automatic rifles. And unless they're fully automatic rifles, but this is what constitutes a fully automatic rifle. I'm hoping that at least as far as those writers that write for outlets that are picked up by AP take that to heart, and the writing becomes a little closer to neutral.
Grace, you mentioned wishing there was more education. And I wanted to ask you, being that you are connected to the firearms industry, you're obviously working in it, have you had conversations with your professors about bringing classes to your campus?
At this point, I think it would definitely be interesting to have something like that. I think I know that our campus does do a self-defense course, but I'm pretty sure it's along the lines of physical defense, not having concealed carry, and maybe things like pepper spray. I have not gone to our self-defense course, but I plan to this fall because I'm curious what they talk about. I just remember seeing ads about it when I was a freshman. So.
Oh, wow.
See, but before you used to go because you were personally interested. Now it's a work assignment.
Yeah.
See, that's the fun part of adulting.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for you, Grace. Given that Midwestern State is the public liberal arts school in Texas, is the general attitude towards guns more left, more right, or that people just don't think about guns? I mean, and then second, especially in your education classes, are you getting an anti-gun vibe from the professors? Like teachers should not be armed, especially post-Uvalde?
Well, I've had multiple professors that have been kind of back and forth on being more left-leaning, more right-leaning. One of my favorite professors was my 8 a.m. last semester, and he's very pro-gun. He talked about it a bit, and he was one of my education professors. And there was some more left-leaning professors I've had, but a lot stay neutral with their classes. And as for like the student body, it seems to be neutral or a bit left-leaning. It definitely varies, though. There's exceptions constantly. I mean, it really varies depending on the class and who you're talking to.
Is there any bit of Texas has a big hunting culture. Have you run across people that go hunting on the weekend or slip off, try to find a place to hunt around Wichita Falls?
Yeah, there's plenty of hunters around me all the time. I've talked to quite a few of them in high school and college.
All right. Anything else you want to talk to Grace about? I'm kind of hearing crickets. Grace, I think we're going. We're going to set it aside there. Thank you so much for joining us. And is there do you have your own website, or do people just go to Truth About Guns to look for your stuff?
For my comic and my artwork, I have a Wix site. It's just the Chambered Pen, and that's where you can find all my comics and drawings of different gun-related things, including like patches and stickers and things like that.
Okay, and
otherwise,
those and those are your comics are about once a week. Is that what I caught from earlier?
Yep, my comics come out on the Truth About Guns once a week, typically.
Very cool. Again, Grace, thanks so much for taking your time to talk to us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Folks, we are going to step aside to our second break. When we come back, we've got a lot of news to talk about, and we will get to that right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Starting off the news, and Susan is working right now. She'll be back in a little while, but she won't be able to join us tonight. To lead off the news, as we mentioned in the interview segment, the AP has updated their style sheets with reference to the modern sporting rifle. You go to what we have in our show notes here. AP updated their style book to eliminate the term assault rifle or assault weapon. According to the style tip, the preferred term for a rifle that fires one bullet each time the trigger is pulled and automatically reloads for a subsequent shot is a semi-automatic rifle. An automatic rifle continuously fires rounds as the trigger is depressed and until the ammunition is exhausted. The AP says to avoid the term assault rifle because they do little to convey actual functions of the weapon. And then I want to get a comment in here real quick because when I mentioned that, G-Webs over on the YouTube side says, in my opinion, that change at the AP is a bad thing and a step to obscure details about firearms even more and weaponize the term semi-automatic. You know, I think honestly, it's gonna make things more clear, and so we've been saying these exact same things. Rob and I have been saying it for years. And John has been saying it. John's been here almost as long as Rob has. We've all been saying it for years. We've been trying to get the legacy media to say, look, these are not assault weapons. These are semi-automatic rifles. If you want an assault weapon, you have to put on a uniform, salute, and say, yes, sir. That's the only way you're going to get a real assault weapon. And finally, someone at AP has got far enough up that they said, okay, we need to knock this off. We need to be clear. I think, myself, it's a good thing.
I would agree.
Why'd they do it? I mean, I doubt the rest of the mainstream media will follow suit anytime soon. The New York Times, never. I wonder if the AP did it now because they're losing so many readers.
Yeah, AP is just a shadow of what they once were. When I went to college, again, my real major was mass media back in the late 80s. AP and UPI were it. AP and UPI are where you went for news.
Mm-hmm.
And then the internet happened.
Surprise.
And yeah. I talked about this at length on the Bullet Thursday of last week. But there are still a number of local news outlets and local newspapers whose writers hope to have their stories picked up by AP, and also a lot of papers that pick up national news and insert it into their local paper from the AP. So are they as influential as they were in 1988, 1989, 1990? No, they're not as influential now as they were, but it's still a big deal.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. I think they may not be as influential as they were back then, but they still add, if you're looking for credibility and legitimacy, they're still obviously, they add that to any stories that are picked up on there. And I think that this is a big deal because it does recognize the misuse of the term assault rifle.
Yeah, it is a big deal, Amy. And I think across the board in journalism, the AP style book is used by more papers. I mean, maybe the New York Times has their own, the Washington Post might have their own, but the AP style book is used by more papers than any other style book. Now, my question is, can we convince them to stop calling magazines with greater than 10-round capacity high capacity and call them what they really are, standard capacity. And while we're at it, stop calling gun control organizations gun safety groups. Yeah.
Yes.
They're not about gun safety, they're about gun prohibition.
Absolutely.
Did all of you see the public poll that came out last week that described our falling trust of the news media? And it rated various organizations, including the AP.
I did not see that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And where did the AP come in?
So it was, do you trust these various sources? Among Democrats, it rated higher than among conservatives and independents. I think 10 to 15% of conservatives, 20% of independents, 30% of Democrats. Now, consider 30% of people who self-identify as Democrats trust the AP. Whoops. Y'all got a problem.
Get a couple comments in here real quick. Back to G-Webs. We will use it correctly, but they will saturate the press with the murder used a semi-automatic weapon. Then guess what? They'll demand to have banned AR-15s or semi-automatic weapons. It just, you know what, Pete? I'm going to take you back to 1987 and a little bit before that. Before it was the Brady campaign, it was Handgun Control Inc. And the big push was they successfully got the Saturday Night Special ban. They got cheap, very inexpensive handguns banned in some areas. Their big thing is they wanted all handguns banned. That was the big gun control push. Not semi-automatic. They wanted all handguns, revolvers, everything banned. Are they going to push for all semi-autos to get banned? Yes. And then they're going to push for bolt actions, lever actions, shotguns, everything. So yeah, they're going to switch vernacular. They're going to push for, it doesn't matter, but they're never going to stop their push. They'll just change their verbiage.
Yeah, going on a little further on that, it's not what they're going after is self-defense, the tools for self-defense, and that the monopoly of violence remains with the government and not with the individual. The U.S., Michael Bain had a podcast last week about this. We're one of the few countries that do recognize the right to self-defense. Look at that gentleman in the bodega,
right?
Whereas
in New York, yes,
Bogota, that initially he was arrested on first-degree murder charges with a $500,000 bond.
Bail.
Now bail down to $250,000. Now $50,000. He should be out on the street with no bail, no charges. Bear in mind
a ticker tape parade in his honor.
The guy was a multiple felon. The district attorney for New York County or Manhattan was a Soros-backed district attorney, and he lets criminals out, but people who engage in legitimate self-defense, there was disparity of ability and force there. 70-some-year-old man versus a 35-year-old thug. Big guy, little guy. I mean, it checked all the boxes.
John, to amplify your point, the thug's girlfriend came at the bodega clerk with a knife first, then the thug piles on. So he's facing not only he's facing two armed attackers, both of whom are considerably younger than he is. He's also behind the counter. He has a very limited ability to retreat.
Exactly.
If I could, I want to, when we're going to be late on this segment, but I want to move to a news story that I don't even know if it's in our, I don't know if Dana had a chance to write it up. Let me
Which one, Paul?
Yeah, there was the last night, the mall in Indiana. Gotcha. There was, there's a blurb of it in there. Last night in Indiana, a jerk, which is all we'll identify them by, attempted to have a mass shooting in a gun-free zone, in a mall that was marked a gun-free zone in Indiana. A 22-year-old young man ignored the gun-free zone law, ignored the gun-free zone signs in Indiana. If you go into a gun-free zone while carrying, it's the same law in Georgia, Texas, South Dakota, a lot of other places. They have to know you're carrying, ask you to leave, and you have to refuse to leave before you've broken any laws. But 22-year-old young man was in there, armed at the time. As soon as bad guy comes out of bathroom, starts shooting in the food court, good guy ends it. Bad guy gets 3, good guy gets bad guy, and in my book, he's a hero.
Can I amplify on that, Paul?
Yes.
Indiana is a constitutional carry state. I have now understood he did not have a carry permit. He was carrying using constitutional carry.
He was also there with his girlfriend. When he heard the shots ring out, he pushed her down. He moved toward the gunfire.
Yes.
He also tried to get other people out.
Let me, and I'm going to see if it's going to take me just a second. I saved it earlier. There's a tweet from Shannon Watts. I'm going to see if I can, see if I can find it here.
We just had Grace.
You broke up a little bit, and now she disappeared. Are you okay, Amy? Go ahead. You broke up a little bit there. Go ahead again, Amy.
I was just saying, we just had Grace, who is 19 years old, as a guest on the show, and she's prohibited from carrying until she's 21. And here we have, a 22-year-old who's really has probably only had his permit at least minimum a year. Who was able to stop a bad guy. So I just see that there are responsible gun owners, concealed carry or constitutional carry holders, whatever it is. This is an example of, when a bad guy with a gun shows up, you call a good guy with a gun.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm trying to
And luckily he was there. They didn't have to wait for the cops to show up.
Well, let's contrast that with Uvalde, where the cops were there, but it took a very long time for them to get in.
The number that I heard recently, was I right? Did I understand this correctly? There were 400 officers there by the time.
That's what the report said.
Is it 400 officers, or was it 400? Because I don't know if they're not actual police officers, but they were, safety officers or school officials. So I'm not sure, but I saw that too, and it was hard to believe.
I do have this loaded up. This is the tweet. I actually, I'm going to put this up. This is from Twitter. Shannon Watts. I don't know who needs to hear this, but when a 22-year-old illegally brings a loaded gun into a mall and kills a mass shooter armed with an AR-15 after he already killed 3 people and wounded another, is not a ringing endorsement for our implementation of the Second Amendment. You know what, Shannon? It absolutely is a ringing endorsement of the Second Amendment. When you get rid of gun laws, good people stop jerks.
Ooh, look at that. And he stopped screaming
And
too at the same time. Good job, Paul.
And you
Go ahead, John.
remember that Shannon Watts was a resident of Indiana for many a year until she moved to Colorado, the People's Republic of Boulder, and now lives somewhere in California with her very well-off husband.
But in a gated community. I'm leaving that one up there. George, I'm just going to put that up there without my comment because I know a lot of officers and I respect them. To a person, every officer I know in that school would have gone to their chain of command and told them, pound sand, I'm going.
I was speaking to someone today. Like many malls, the recommended conduct yellow sheet, weapons prohibited, what that does is let the cops and the mall cops throw the gangs out of the mall. Mm-hmm. So that when they want to go at it in bad weather on a Friday night, they go, here, guys, empty your pockets. Oh, thank you. Out of here. Unless those signs are up at every entrance and exit, they have no force of law. More to the point, and as you correctly pointed out, if you're made and asked to leave, it becomes a trespass penalty, a ticket, if you don't. You and I'd leave. But also, you and I routinely break those signs because they don't have force of law. And in this case, they save lives. Those signs are put up by a loss prevention specialist, meaning someone who goes, if we're going to get sued, how do we maintain culpable deniability? Or I'm sorry, probable deniability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be honest, most of those places that are gun-free zones are there on behest of corporate headquarters. Most malls are corporately owned by a couple of different companies throughout the nation, or insurance companies. I'll challenge you to find a non-liberal insurance company. Get a couple of comments up here again. What is also great, Mike says, is that there was no collateral people shot by the good guy. My understanding is the training from that this is just hearsay on hearsay. I have no proof of this. This is what I've heard. People have heard. This 22-year-old young man was trained by his grandfather.
Wow.
Right, he did not have either military or police instruction.
Yep. Dana, our writer, if you don't know, Dana is our writer. Dana says, Shannon, you've been self-owned.
Amy, let me ask Amy a question.
Yep.
Given that you are a veteran and were a firearms instructor in the military, how much training do Marines, soldiers, Navy, whomever, really get in handguns?
Depending on your MOS, if you're not in a combat arms MOS, or if you're not in the training section of the military, you see the range. At least in the Marine Corps, you qualify once a year, and that equates to about 1 or 2 weeks, or 1 to 2 weeks of actual training per year.
With the rifle or handgun?
Depending, and again, I'm only speaking for the Marine Corps, but in the Marine Corps, with a rifle, and you have to reach a certain rank, or you're like a military police officer, if you're able to carry a handgun.
Oh, and she's breaking up again. Let me get this comment up here. Carrie says, 22 years old, he's a hero, but no one wants to take a life. I'll second that. I send him prayers and well wishes. I hope people give him space. I do too. I really hope this young man doesn't become a celebrity of this. the best thing I can hope for this kid is continued anonymity.
He has a lot to learn from the vets in his area, though. So I would hope the local VFW would send him a message that said, I know you haven't been in the military, but maybe we now have something in common if you need a place to talk. Because there are some people who have felt some of the things he's feeling now.
Yeah. Also want to get one more comment in, also from Carrie. She says, the bad guys look for the gun-free zone. And I want to point that this mall is a gun-free zone. Although the mall has come out and said they're grateful this kid did what he did. I say kid, obviously a man. But the mall said this. They're grateful for what this guy did, what he did. I wonder, is the mall going to stay? I imagine the mall probably will, because of corporate policy, stay a gun-free zone. But it would be a great argument to say, hey, maybe you should take down the no gun signs.
Right. And the chief of police in the suburb called him a hero.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
good.
Let's think about the Indiana, not exactly New Jersey, not exactly Manhattan. The guy still went for the gun-free zone. The bad guy still went for the mall where you're not supposed to have a gun. That didn't bother him. I'm putting thoughts into a dead person's head, but probably thinking that, look, there's not going to be a chance anybody's going to be able to fight back here. I'm going to be the only one with a gun. No guns allowed here.
Yep.
Oopsie, this is Indiana where,
They went looking for one-sided combat, and he found two-sided combat.
Yep. All right, well, let's do this. We're late for break. Big shock. We always are. We got a DGU segment to get to, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to step aside. We'll be right back right after we hear from JPFO.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. JPFO.org.
Welcome back to the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The Defensive Gun Use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Let's see here. First one, I'll let you guys fight over who takes the second one. I'm going to go ahead and read the first one. First one out of Chicago. Recently, there's been a wave of carjacking in the Loop area of Chicago. That's been being done by an organized gang. Shortly after 3 a.m., a woman was pistol-whipped and carjacked outside her residence. About 4 blocks away, a 42-year-old man was pulling his $150,000 sports car into the Roosevelt Collection Lofts parking garage. Unaware to him, a black Jeep Cherokee and a Chevy Trax were following him into the garage. 5 men stepped out of the 2 cars, and they all pulled guns to rob him. The victim, however, was exercising his constitutional rights and had his permission slip and had both his pants and his gun on. Thank God he had his pants on. He engaged the crew in a shootout. He suffered a gunshot wound to his leg and a graze wound to his head. His car remained in the garage, but he was transported to a hospital in good condition. All the members of the gang had hoodies and masks on. police found 17 shell casings on the third level of the garage. The woman and her friend in the earlier incident were robbed and their Chrysler 300 was stolen. As of the date of this story, there were 22 people shot in the Loop community. At the same point in 2021, there were 14, 7 in 2020, and 4 for the entire year of 2019. How's that democratically run city working for you, downtown Chicago? Which, by the way, that's where the Loop is downtown. Rob, I'm sorry, you're first up in show notes, man.
Let's put it in perspective. This weekend, 7 people were shot and murdered in Lori Lightfoot's Chicago. That brings the total to 1,477 wounded, 333 shot and killed by criminal gangs so far this year. I think that redefines mass murder. Over 300 people, and we're just past the halfway point on the year. Yet the news media would never say, wait a minute, this is an ongoing mass murder scene. No, it's just business as usual in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and the Chicago's saving grace is that you can get a concealed carry permit. It's not easy. But right. You can live in Chicago and get a concealed carry permit. You just got to travel a bit.
It may take you 18 months.
Yes.
That's the other part.
Yes. 17 rounds fired, 17 shell casings on the third level of the garage. 5 men stepped out of the 2 cars to rob him. Are you really sure that 6-shot revolver is good enough? Are you really sure that Glock 43 with the 6-round magazine is going to get the job done?
By the way, the laws proposed in New York and California may make our defender's actions in this case illegal for bringing his firearm into a public parking garage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's a sensitive area.
Right.
All right. John, you want to take us to Missouri?
Yes. The next story is from St. Charles, Missouri, which is just across the Missouri River from St. Louis County. A 26-year-old man was on the road and he decided to make a quick pit stop at a Quick Trip station. He needed to go use the restroom, grab a quick snack, the usual. At the time he got to the store, another 26-year-old man was on a, quote, violent crime spree. St. Charles police were investigating an armed robbery at one gas station, a burglary at another, and then they received a report from a third station of shots fired. At that third station, our hero, the pit stop man, had finished his purchase and walked out of the store to go back to his car. He saw a black SUV pull up to the front of the store, and the robbery spree man got out and entered the store holding a backpack. He then watched the suspect drag a female to the front counter while holding a knife to her throat. We don't know whether the first man normally practiced pogo and had removed his firearm for comfort or driving or what, but he got his 9mm handgun and re-entered the store and confronted the suspect. The suspect grabbed his backpack and told the good guy, "I have something for you." He came around the corner and approached the man with the gun, who whereupon fired several shots which put the robber on the floor. Both the good guy and the clerk called 911. When the police arrived, they found the black SUV had been reported stolen earlier, a couple days ago. Inside the vehicle were items from the second store, and the SUV had been reported at the scene of the first robbery. Go figure.
Yeah.
And the robbery suspect was transported to a local hospital where he was reported DOA.
Yeah. Tom Knighton and I discussed this on the Bullet here earlier today. Another example, and we're getting more and more and more of these, of crimes in progress being, just absolutely. This wasn't a mass murder, but this is the second store in hours that this guy had taken a knife to the clerks, and if I'm remembering it right, he took a knife to the throat of the clerk. She emptied out the cash drawer. He took her to the safe. She couldn't get in the safe. He was going to walk away. No, he comes back and grabs the knife, takes her to the second. She ended up, when she goes to the hospital because she has knife wounds on her wrists and on her neck. Thankfully, non-life threatening. But this guy did not care in the least whether the clerk lived or died. And I am really grateful for. I just wish I have a suspicion this guy, the gun was in the glove box. I don't think the gun was on his pants, simply because he had to go retrieve it.
Yeah.
I think this is where a plan is really valuable, because if you see it and then go, wow, that's really bad, I'm armed, what should I do? That's time you don't have. That's time the crime is progressing. The advantage of a plan, Amy, I'd love to hear your comments. The advantage of a plan is it gives you a set of options. Oh, if I saw this, I could do this, this, and this. And it keeps you from grabbing a really bad option. Like, I'm going to go tell that guy that I'm a witness. No! Well, we say that's stupid. Okay, got it. But it happens. And if this were at 10:30 at night, we're getting dumber by the hour at that point.
You're certainly not going to put your cell phone up there and say, I got video of this, buddy.
Yeah, right.
I think while we don't want to think about the worst case scenario, every situation we might find ourselves in, that is what you have to do, especially if you are someone that's going to carry a gun in your, either on your person or in your glove box. I mean, even thinking about, okay, I'm carrying my gun, it's in my glove box, but if I encounter something, I have to go back and retrieve it. I mean, that's need to consider, and that's why it's important to, think about, if I'm buying a gun, what am I using this for? Is it for defense? If it's for defense, I need to learn how to use it on my person, from on body carry, versus if I'm going to just leave it in my car everywhere I go.
Yeah. Are you going to go buy? We all have seen the ads for those very strong magnets that sit underneath the dashboard, and you just have your gun there or something that pops it out. I think it's an ideal situation for a shoulder holster.
Yeah.
For driving. More comfortable.
Well, didn't this happen in Missouri?
Yeah, just south of St. Louis.
North.
It's a constitutional carry state. He didn't need a permit. He could put the firearm on body.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like Indiana.
Yeah.
Well, yes. St. Charles is adjacent to North County, which is where Ferguson, Missouri is located.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It also has Interstate 70 coming right through it. I've been to St. Charles a few times.
All right. Let's do this. We're almost on time, so let's go ahead and we're going to step aside for one more break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what each of us are doing in media, and then we'll shut the show down. So we're going to hear from CNJFO. We'll be back right after this.
New Jersey is a civil rights wasteland where an unconstitutional law known as justifiable need keeps ordinary citizens from exercising their right to bear arms. New Jersey spits in the eye of freedom, ignores the Bill of Rights and the Heller decision. New Jersey politics are an anti-civil rights bulldozer and a spreading cancer. The Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners, a tax-exempt nonprofit, has a goal to defeat justifiable need, reverse course on all anti-freedom laws, and render aid to other jurisdictions by filing Supreme Court-bound litigation. CNJFO is a beacon of freedom behind the Iron Curtain in New Jersey. Join CNJFO's strong, enthusiastic patriots. Support the Coalition of New Jersey Firearms Owners today. Protect all our rights and return freedom to the Garden State. To donate or learn more, go to cnjfo.com.
Everyone, welcome to the final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Get a couple of, or get at least a comment in here. Honcho Fett says, I just took a driving trip from Texas to Virginia and carried the entire trip. Tested out a new Comfort Tac belly band. It works great with the new summer clothes. Belly bands and me just don't work because I got a lot less than I used to, but I still got a bit of belly. And so, somebody like Amy, there's not a lot of belly there. Belly bands may work. I got a belly, so belly bands and me don't work so well.
I've seen Amy model a belly band at a fashion show.
Yes. But yeah, no, if you've got the body shape for them, they work fantastically. And I would just encourage you to get an insert for the belly band, a hard Kydex insert, so that there's no chance of you manipulating a trigger in a soft belly band. But yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and get to the normal things we do on our final segment. I'm going to go to the guy I usually go to and say, Rob, dude, what's been up at Slowfax since the last time we were on the air?
If only we had something to talk about. Well, a mass murderer opened fire in a food court. He was armed with a rifle. He killed 3 people before he was stopped by a 22-year-old who was carrying a handgun. Was the young man stopping a mass murder a matter of luck, or was it the expected outcome that experts anticipated? I wrote an article called How Hard Is It to Stop a Mass Murderer? That's at slowfax.wordpress.com. From there, my articles are picked up at Clash Daily and at AmmoLand. I also write the Armed Citizens column at AmmoLand. John, what's new on your blog, No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money?
Well, blogging's been a little slow the last couple of weeks. I mean, gun blogging. I've done some other stuff. Part of it is due to work, and part of it is just being motivated to sit down and write. Not saying that there's not a lot of stuff to write about right now. I did take note that Whit Davis, who has served as the attorney for the NRA Board of Directors since 2019, is stepping down. The reason he is leaving is not known. None was given. He just said, I'm leaving. And while the board's attorney should be independent of Wayne LaPierre, he should serve at the pleasure of the board. He was installed when his predecessor was fired by Wayne. So much for independence. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
Amy, have you got anything you've put out for media or written or anything lately that you want to talk about?
I've got some things in the pipeline, but nothing published yet. So I'm not going to talk about those until they come out. But thanks for asking. So nothing for me tonight. Okay. On my end, I want to talk about the bullet, and specifically, I was just reminded of something when we did the bullet just about 2 hours ago. Right now, I was talking with Tom Knighton, and I mentioned, because it was about this point in the show, we got to the mall shooting in Indiana, and I mentioned that, the Clackamas mall shooting happened in Oregon, happened just about 12 years ago. And even to this day, I'll bring that up. I imagine I'll be bringing up this
attempted mall shooting for just as long, if not longer. There are a lot of similarities in these. But the Clackamas mall shooting, the good guy never had to fire a shot. All he had to do is show up, present, take aim. He didn't take the shot because he wasn't entirely sure of what was behind the bad guy. Bad guy seen good guy looking down his sights, and bad guy seen good guy looking down his sights at him. Bad guy goes, "Whoops, this is it," goes behind a wall and ends his own life and ends the shooting spree. It's whether the good guy ends it or the bad guy ends it. When a good guy gets involved and joins with violence against violence, these things end very quickly. And something that the police chief of Uvalde, Texas, I wish would have taken into account 60 some odd minutes before he did. And DJ, thank you, DJ. DJ Play Nice on YouTube comments. Black and Small was December 2012, so 9.5 years ago. So anyway, just after I started podcasting. Anyway, I think that's. I would encourage everybody to join me for The Bullet, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone that matters. Hat tip to John Anderson over at Get Off My Lawn podcast, and noon Central Time on Saturdays. That's going to be. I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Anything else we need to discuss before we take off?
I'm good.
All right.
Yep.
In that case, we're going to give you guys 8 minutes of your time back for the night. We usually do a 90-minute show. We're going to leave a little bit early. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for commenting. Come join us next week at 6 p.m. Central Time. Until then, we'll see you next. I got into my bullet clothes, not into my Polite Society clothes. That wraps up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Grace Stevens for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, I am going to do just a minute or two of post-show here. Simply to, when you do, I do 6 bullets, 1 Polite Society, and I do video production for Eye on the Target, so that makes 8 broadcasts every week. But the majority of what I do is the bullet, and I get into a habit of I open every show the same way, I close the show the same way every day. And so I kind of got hung up in this is how you close a show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating. And come join me next time. And as I'm reaching for the button to put the logo up and shut everything off, I realize that's not how, and that's never how, I've closed the Polite Society podcast. So, everybody who is watching, sincerely, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. And please do come join us 6 p.m. or Central Time next Monday when the guest, let me go look up the guest. I believe it's going to be Tim, but let me get my calendar up here. Yeah, Tim Krosno is going to be our guest next week, I think, as soon as I get confirmation from my calendar. Yep, Tim Crosno, who did a hunting trip in South America. He's going to be talking about that, crossed an item off his bucket list. Really excited to talk to him about that. And honestly, Tim and I are what you call frenemies. We're friends. He's traveled up here to take a training that I've hosted up here, and I'll be traveling down there again very soon. But we meet up and we're bickering back and forth on social media all the time. Great friend. We call each other frenemies, but he'll be joining us next week to talk about that hunting trip to South America, and I'm really looking forward to that. Come join us next week. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll